Joining us now, our CNN senior political analyst, John Avlon, and CNN political commentators, Angela Rye. She's the former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, and Scott Jennings. He's a former special assistant to President George W. Bush. Thanks, guys, for getting up early with us. John Avlon, you are always so good at giving us perspective. How are we supposed to process what we watched last night?
We watched last night a debate that degraded our democracy almost by design. If there were any kids watching their first presidential debate last night, we owe them an apology. Really, Donald Trump owes them an apology, because Joe Biden showed up for a presidential debate, and Donald Trump showed up to throw rhetorical feces, and he made a mess of himself, and he made a mess of the process, but we're better than this. We are better than what we saw last night. The president was unhinged, and he always mistakes bluster for strength. It's weakness. That's what we saw.
I will say, again, we don't owe the apology. There was one person who did this. This debate was driven, the tone of the debate was driven by one person. It didn't devolve into chaos. One person
No, that's right.
devolved this into chaos. And I do think we need to be careful with how we phrase this, because if chaos is the headline, then Donald Trump wins, right? That he gets what he wants. He wanted the circus there, and to an extent, he got it. Now, we can argue whether or not a circus for him is the best strategy, but I do think we need to be careful how we characterize it. Angela, what did you see?
You know, John, I think that's fair, John. I do. I think the challenge is that you expect a moderator to ensure that they have some type of decorum, that they follow some type of rules. And at the very least, can we get mics turned off when this happens? When we throw words around like sick and despicable and unbelievable, that's not the theme of last night's debate. That is the theme of Donald Trump's presidency, right? That is the theme of what happened in 2016. There's nothing new under the sun here. Joe Biden, to John Avlon's point, did show up to debate. He showed up to debate Mitt Romney. The problem is Mitt Romney hasn't been on the stage since 2012. So you have to show up to debate a clown, as he so aptly put it, who shows up every day on Twitter with no facts, right? And so I left the debate last night feeling like I just binge watched Love and Hip Hop, which always left me with this icky feeling. I stopped watching the show. It's not because there were a bunch of rap references thrown around or any type of real diversity. Even in questions, diversity was shirked, right? But the reality of it is, it gave me a disgusting feeling. It didn't feel good. And the only way I thought Joe Biden could have won against Donald Trump last night was to swing on him, especially when he brought up his son and talked so poorly about his kids.
What did you see, Scott?
I actually want to disagree a little bit with John's point about chaos. I don't think it plays into Trump's hands. There's not that much time left before the election, and Trump needs to change the trajectory. It's been a pretty stable race in the polling. And so if you look at it through the lens of audiences, what kind of audiences does he need to recollect? Does he need to recapture that he had in 16 that he doesn't have now? There's a lot of suburban women. There's some senior citizens that seem to have gravitated away. If you were in those audiences, I'm not sure watching the chaos, if that's the word we want to use, would have done anything to recapture those people. So while I think Trump's hardest core supporters love the smash mouth, and I think Biden's supporters, of course, feel aggrieved that, and they, this validates all their views about Trump. It's those niche audiences that Trump would have to recapture, and I didn't, he was on offense, but he crossed the line and became offensive. And those audiences, I don't think, are going to respond to that kind of, overplaying your hand.
And I do think that raises, Scott, I think the second major question here, and you're always free to disagree with me, and I appreciate that, which is, to what extent was this effective? To what extent did this change the race? To what extent, John, did this help a president who was losing going into debate night?
It didn't. I mean, to Scott's point, if there's anything resembling strategy in the back of Donald Trump's brain as opposed to just instinct and impulse, he would have been trying to reach out to suburban women. He would have been trying to reach out to senior citizens. But instead, he was just a loudmouth guy screaming at the end of the bar, fact-free, talking over everybody, acting like the rules don't apply to him, all things that I think he authentically believes. But he went incredibly overboard. And that's why one of the big lines of the night was Joe Biden saying, look, shut up, man, because he spoke for a lot of people at home. And just the constant stream of insults we saw. It's a real view into his soul that we see every day through Twitter, but we rarely see on stage. And look, Biden did not have a great night. He had a good night. The best thing about his performance was Donald Trump going so overboard that he clearly was the only adult in the room.
Angela, in case people are just waking up.
If I may,
oh yeah, quickly, Scott.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to. I think John has a good point. Biden, he had an okay night. There were actually a couple of moments where Trump had Biden on an issue. For instance, on the Green New Deal, I thought Biden was all over the place, and so that was a moment where Trump actually could have scored, if not for overplaying and over talking it. And so you could see a nugget of strategy in there and what Trump was trying to do on some of these issues. But then by overplaying it, he sort of ruined the hole that he was trying to dig for Biden. So it was, to John's point, that they never allowed Biden to dig the hole that they wanted to dig because Trump just, he just couldn't let it breathe. He couldn't let the strategy breathe.
That's interesting. But there was a moment, obviously, that's gotten so much attention in case people missed it. The president refused to condemn white supremacy. Here is that moment.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
but
do it? Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. Do you want to call him? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what his FBI, FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
Angela, the president has the hardest time condemning it. What more do we need to know? I mean, what more do we ever need to ask him? He can't do it.
Well, he won't do it, Allison. Your president is a white supremacist, and he's a racist, and he's a bigot, and those are words that I've said from the very first moment that he came down the escalator announcing his campaign. This is the same president who called said Barack Obama was not born in this country. He was the spokesman for the birther movement. So what's fascinating to me is the number of people who are blown away by the fact that he would not condemn the very thing that he built his entire campaign upon, right? Of course he's not going to condemn his base. That is a key part of Donald Trump's strategy to continue to gin them up. And the most important thing, I think, wasn't just that he wouldn't condemn white supremacy, it's that it went hand in glove with this idea of not accepting election results. It's the very same thing. It is the reason why people all over this country, whether they live in progressive states or red states, are talking about going to shooting ranges and learning how to shoot. People do not know what's going to happen on the other side of this. And the number of conversations that I'm a part of right now where people are talking about civil war is next is a real problem. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Donald Trump's America. That is the problem. I feel terrible about talking about and critiquing Joe Biden's debate strategy when we're literally trying to put a demagogue out of office. The truth of the matter is Joe Biden did not have a great night, but America had an even worse one. That's what we're dealing with.
You're right, Angela. The president was given an opportunity to tell his supporters that they should remain peaceful after the election had come, and he wouldn't do it. John Avlon, I just want, well, we're in this discussion, and I know we're going to go to the next segment soon, but so people can see the impact of the president telling the Proud Boys to stand by. This is what they heard. I hope we have these tweets up on the screen here. Some of these Proud Boys...
If you drop the banner, you can see that they say, yep.
There we go. Stand back, stand by. Again, the Proud Boys is a group the Anti-Defamation League calls a white supremacist group that inspires violence here. And you can see, John, that they took this as a call to arms.
Absolutely. And we have discussed this before because this is part of a pattern. Going back to when he refused to denounce David Duke, he's refused to call out white nationalist violence. Clearly, consistently. We did a reality check about it just a few weeks ago. And these groups take his lack of a clear condemnation as an endorsement. And as the point Angela just made is so important, because he segued soon after that horrific comment to talking about how he wants his supporters to rush the polls. Sounds like an invitation to voter intimidation. And this is a powder keg the president is setting to degrade our democracy, but we cannot let him do it.
Yeah, we're going to go to break here. Let me leave you with these words from Thomas Friedman overnight in an op-ed. When extremists go all the way and moderates just go away, the system can break, and it will break. And that's his fear overnight. We've got